Venezuela is the country that Sir Arthur Conan Doyle made the backdrop of his Lost World back in 1912. And it was not a product of pure fantasy. The writer had studied geographers' reports about flat-topped mountains rising vertically out of the jungle, and on the basis of this data he composed a story about a plateau where dinosaurs were living out their days on the summits. As it later turned out, he was not far from the truth. On the summits of these mountains, the tepuis, there really do live creatures found nowhere else on Earth. Take a single frog as an example. It has forgotten how to jump. Instead of leaping, this creature curls into a ball and rolls downward like a marble. On the summit of Mount Roraima, quartz crystals protrude from the ground, and they are precisely what gave rise to the legend of the glittering diamond deposits of El Dorado. But the most inexplicable thing awaits us on the summit of another tepui, Mount Sari-Sarinama. There, directly in the rock, 4 perfectly even circular sinkholes gape open. Today, we will unravel the secrets that Venezuela conceals. In the southeast of the country, in Bolívar State, rises the flat-topped mountain Auyan Tepui. In the language of the Pimon people, its name translates as the Mountain of the Devil. The area of the summit alone reaches approximately 700 square kilometers, and around its perimeter it drops away in sheer walls 600 to 1,000 meters high. From the edge of this giant tumbles a waterfall 979 meters high, the famous Angel Falls, the tallest on the planet. It surpasses Niagara Falls by 15 times and stands 3 times taller than the Eiffel Tower. But there is a paradox here that is difficult to accept on faith until one has seen it with one's own eyes. In certain weather conditions, the water simply never reaches the ground. Breaking away from the cliff, the torrent halfway down transforms into a cloud of mist, which the wind disperses for kilometers in every direction, never allowing it to touch the surface. The first Westerner to officially document the waterfall was American aviator Jimmy Angel in November of 1933. He was circling the canyon in search of gold deposits, happened to spot the gigantic flow of water, and left a note in his flight log. Flew over an enormous waterfall a mile high. 4 years later, in 1937, he returned and made the bold decision to land his aircraft directly on the plateau of Auyan Tepui. The plane became mired in the boggy soil of the summit, and Angel, along with 3 companions, spent 11 days making their way on foot through impenetrable jungle to descend. The aircraft itself stood on the mountaintop for 33 years before it was finally airlifted off by helicopter. Today it is on display near the airport in Ciudad Bolívar, while a replica has been installed on the mountain itself at the crash site. The waterfall was named after the pilot, Angel, though the official Venezuelan name is Querepacupai Meru, which translates as the waterfall of the deepest place. Another celebrated mountain of the region is Roraima, whose height reaches 2,810 meters. It stands at the point where the borders of 3 countries meet: Venezuela, Brazil, and Guyana. On all sides, it is surrounded by sheer cliffs up to 400 meters high, and the only way to ascend to the plateau is from the Brazilian side along a gentle trail. The climb takes approximately 5 days. While working on The Lost World in 1912, Conan Doyle had never himself been to South America, yet he read expedition reports attentively and corresponded with researchers. It was precisely the descriptions of Roraima, a sheer mountain floating above the jungle and completely isolated from the outside world, that formed the basis of his fictional plateau with its prehistoric inhabitants. At the top, the traveler is greeted by a true lunar landscape: black rocks swathed in moss, labyrinths of cracks, and a permanent veil of mist. Quartz crystals protrude from the ground everywhere, and it was these that gave rise to the legend of the diamond deposits of El Dorado. The traveler Walter Raleigh once described mountains with gleaming stones, having taken them for precious gems. On Roraima, one encounters species found nowhere else in the world. For instance, the frog Oreofrenella quelchi has forgotten how to jump. Sensing a threat, it curls into a ball and rolls down the rock, while on dark-colored stone it becomes virtually invisible. Carnivorous plants, bromeliads with crimson cups, and orchids growing directly from the cracks in rock hide in the cloud mist. This entire ecosystem exists at an elevation of 2,810 meters, wrapped in eternal haze and cut off from the rest of the planet by steep precipices. In November of 1961, pilot Harry Gibson was flying over the southern part of Venezuela. Glancing out the window, he saw something he initially took for an optical illusion. In the forested summit of a mountain, several perfectly circular sinkholes gaped open, as though some giant had punched clean through the massif with a finger. This was the mountain Sari-Sariñama, 2,350 meters high. Unlike most tepuis, its plateau is densely overgrown with forest, and it is among this greenery that four giant shafts are hidden. The largest bears the name Cima Humboldt. At the surface, its diameter is 352 meters, and it widens toward the bottom to 502 meters, descending to a depth of 314 meters. At the very bottom grows its own separate forest, trees that have never seen direct sunlight. The first expedition managed to descend to the floor of the sinkhole only in 1974, using a helicopter. Inside Cima Humboldt, scientists discovered species of orchids and bromeliads, as well as amphibians found nowhere else on Earth. The second large sinkhole, Cima Martel, lies 700 meters from the first, its depth reaching 248 meters, and a forest grows on its floor as well. Only in 1976, following a joint Polish-Venezuelan expedition, were scientists able to explain the origin of these perfectly circular shafts. They arose as the result of a special type of chemical erosion of quartzite by water. Yet the reason for their flawlessly regular circular shape remains to this day a subject of scientific debate. On the shores of Lake Maracaibo, at the point where the Catatumbo River flows in, a storm rages almost year-round. This phenomenon is known as the Catatumbo lightning. Electrical discharges above the lake are recorded on average from 150 to 200 nights annually, and their intensity can reach 280 flashes per hour. In terms of lightning density per square kilometer, Maracaibo holds first place in the world, and in 2014, NASA officially confirmed this through satellite data. It is here that the highest concentration of lightning strikes on the planet is recorded, approximately 250 bolts per square kilometer annually. The cause lies in the particular geography of the place. The Sierra de Perijá Mountains surround the lake on three sides, and the warm, moist air arriving from the Caribbean Sea collides there with cold flows descending from the mountains. In addition, the lake itself releases into the atmosphere at night the heat accumulated during the day, provoking constant convection and near-daily thunderstorms. Spanish conquistadors in their time dubbed this phenomenon the Lighthouse of Maracaibo. The flashes of lightning illuminated the coastline in the dark, and sailors used them for navigation on the open sea. In Canaima National Park, to the west of Auyan Tepui, lies a lagoon whose water is a pinkish-reddish hue. This color is not the result of pollution, but the consequence of a high organic content. Laguna Canaima is surrounded by several small waterfalls that flow directly into it, and the reddish-brown tint of the water is explained by tannins, organic compounds leached from the decomposing vegetation of the tepuis. Together, all of this creates a unique picture: pinkish-brown water, snow-white waterfall foam, and reddish cliffs all around. The beach at the lagoon is black, composed of fine volcanic sand. Canaima National Park itself covers more than 30,000 square kilometers and ranks among the largest on the planet. With 65% of its territory made up of tepuis, there are more than 100 of them here. Scattered across the park's territory are more than 1,000 waterfalls, the majority of which remain nameless and have never even been photographed. In 1994, the park was added to the UNESCO World Heritage List, specifically because of the uniqueness of the tepuis as biological and geological formations. Mount Autana is yet another tepui, located in the Amazonian region of Venezuela, and its distinguishing feature has no parallel on the planet. Passing through its body is a natural tunnel 400 meters long and approximately 40 meters high. literally piercing the rocky massif from one side to the other. This is not a cave in the conventional sense, but a genuine through corridor inside the mountain, carved entirely in quartzite, one of the hardest and most chemically resistant minerals in existence. The very existence of such a tunnel in quartzite rock seems almost physically impossible, and it is presumed that an underground river cut it over millions of years. It is precisely in the Venezuelan part of the Guyana highlands that the world's most extensive quartzite caves are found. And the absolute record holder here is Mount Roraima. Inside it run 10.8 kilometers of passages, along with 3 underground rivers. In 2018, an international team of scientists led by Professor Francesco Sauro of the University of Bologna penetrated the cave systems inside Auyan Tepui and Sari Nyama. Their discovery fundamentally changed the understanding of what life can actually be. The thing is, the quartzite caves of the Tepuis are completely devoid of organic food sources. There is no fallen leaf litter, no rotting wood, no other material from which cave ecosystems normally sustain themselves. And yet inside these voids, bacteria are thriving, hundreds of species, many of which were previously entirely unknown to science. These microorganisms literally feed on stone. They dissolve quartzite, one of the most chemically resistant materials on Earth, and extract energy from this process. This is one of the most extreme metabolic types known to science. Furthermore, these bacteria form opaline stromatolites, mineral structures usually associated with the most ancient forms of life on our planet. In the Tepui caves, such structures are being formed right now, in our own time. It is presumed that these cavities have had no contact with the surface for tens of millions of years, and the life inside them has evolved in conditions of complete isolation. Scientists believe that studying such microbial communities may shed light on what life on Earth could have looked like in the earliest periods of its existence. Venezuela is no longer the fictional world from an adventure novel. This is a place where reality surpasses even the boldest imaginings. The Tepuis rise above the jungle with their flat summits lost in clouds, surrounded by sheer walls hidden in shadow. And inside these stone fortresses, for hundreds of millions of years, life has existed, evolving in complete separation from everything else the world contains.